anytime.com.
Today we're going to have a little heavy stuff, and you're going to have to apply yourself somewhat. Perhaps I should have prepared the easier stuff, but that's how it is. I suppose it's Menashemayim, whatever is said, is Bashgach of Chodesh, with individual attention for the persons that have to hear. So I suppose it was so willed and dictated Menashemayim that you're going to hear somewhat heavy stuff today, and I hope it'll do you some good. It says in the Mishnah, in Pirkei Avos, Basara Mamaris Nivra Ha'ayalam. The world was created with 10 Mamaris. The Rebbeinu Shalom uttered 10 decrees by Brias Ayalam, by the creation of the world. It says 10 times Vayomer. Actually, there's a machlekes in that between the Medrash, the Zayar, and the Gemara. By Mainse Breishis, in the first Parsha Breishis, it says 10 times Vayomer. These are the Asara Ma'amarei Shenivra Ha'ayalam, the 10 utterings, the 10 utterances with which the Rebbeinu Shalom created the world. However, in the Gemara doesn't count the first 10 Vayomers, but rather the 9 Vayomers, the 9 first Vayomers in Bereishis, and the word Bereishis in itself is also one of the Ma'amarim. Bereishis Nami Maimahu. Bereishis is also an utterance which brought forth the creation of the world. So our Sfarim tell us that the Chodeshim explains that the Rebbeinu Shalom created the world with these 10 Ma'amaris. In other words, everything in the world consists of one or a combination of several of these Ma'amaris. And depending on the combination, and if you would say so, upon the recipe, how it was mixed, or the heavenly pharmacy, that's how each creature appears, according to the Ma'amaris. But these Ma'amaris are hidden in Mainse Breishis. We don't see them. When we look at this table, do we see the Vayomer or the Vayomers which are contained in this table? We see a material table. However, a time came when things were forgotten, when Klal Yisrael did forget because of the situation of slavery in which they found themselves. They did forget that Rebbeinu Shalom created the world, and especially the Goyim did. So the Rebbeinu Shalom appeared again, and he introduced himself and his Asara Ma'amaris. He surfaced the Asara Ma'amaris that everyone should be able to see them through the Esar Makos, through the 10 inflictions which which the Mitzrayim were smitten with in Mitzrayim. After that, it was very clear who created the world, because each one of these 10 Makos brought out one of the 10 ma'amares. And the Goyish world realized that, and the Jewish nation was inspired with this, and they therefore accepted the Aseres HaDibros, the 10 commandments, which are correspondent to the Asara Ma'amares, which were brought to revelation through the Asara Makkos. Now, the Seder, the order of the 10 Makkos, the way the Zohar puts it, is backwards. In other words, the first Makkah, which is Makkah's dam, of blood, manifested the last Maimar of the Rabbeinu Shalom. And that's how it worked its way up backwards until the last Makkah, Makkah's Bechayres, that the firstborn were killed, that brought out the first Maimar, Breishis, using the way that the Gemara counts, and that Breishis is also a Maimar. It would be very burdensome, perhaps, to go through all the Asara Ma'amares and all the Asara Makkos and all the Asara HaDibros and show how they correspond to each other. But just as an example, the first Maimar is Breishis. It means the beginning. And this Maimar smote the firstborn sons, the beginning of Mitzrayim, Makkah's Bechayres. The second Maimar, let there be light. The ninth Makkah was Chayshach, darkness for the Mitzrayim. In other words, they were deprived of the light, just like the 10th Makkah deprived them from their beginning, from the firstborn sons, and so on. Now, the Zohar tells us that each one of these Makkahs weren't just wrath, they weren't just punishment that comes from evil powers. They came from the Rabbeinu Shalom. And it's true that they were negef leMitzrayim, they were an affliction on Mitzrayim, but they were rafai liYisrael. Each one of these Makkos was a refuah, was a blessing and a healing to Klal Yisrael. And on Pesach, we enumerate all the Makkos. And it's not enough for us that we have 10 Makkos. We figure out that there were 40 Makkos. And then we figure out from the Psukim that there were 50 Makkos. And then according to one man Damar, there were 200 Makkos. And then according to one man Damar, there were 250 Makkos. And we spent a lot of time at it at the Seder, and we're hungry, we want to eat the matzah. But this is very important, because with our reciting all these things, we bring down again certain vaeiros, certain lights, because as I explained last week and 2 weeks ago, everything in the Torah is alive and it repeats itself, and when we talk about it, it happens. So the more Makkos we can darshan from the Psukim that there were on the Mitzrayim, the more refuahs we draw upon Klal Yisrael. So it's very advantageous to find that there were more and more. So, because it was Negev or Refuah. In this week's Sedre, the general formula of the Makis was that Kavod Leif Pari, the heart of Pari was heavy. He didn't want to respond to the logic which the Makis wanted to impart to him. Why don't you subordinate yourself to the Rabbeinu Shalom? Don't you see that heaven and earth and all that is in it is all subordinated to the Rabbeinu Shalom? Why don't you become part of the general creation and also subordinate yourself? Till when will you not be subordinate to me? The Rabbeinu Shalom says upon delivering these Makis. And Kavod Leif Pari, Pari's heart is heavy. He has no heart. This is also the receptacle in which all these Makis were delivered to the Mitzrayim. The receptacle of Kavod Leif Pari, that they had a heavy heart. His heart hardened. Everything that you cook and you try to soften it, it becomes softer and softer and softer. Liver, when you cook it, becomes harder and stiffer. So the Medrash says, Kavod Leif Pari. Kavod means liver. The heart of Pari is liver. The more, and the Medrash tells us a nice mashal. It's a very deep mashal. Maybe I won't do it justice now because I don't intend to elaborate on that. But since it's in this week's Seder and I mentioned it, the king of the jungle, the lion, was promenading in the forest together with his retinue, the wolf and the fox and the leopard. And he came to the river, and there was a little bridge across the river, a log, and the donkey was stationed there to collect the toll. And as the king wanted to pass, the donkey said, Your Majesty, please pay the toll. So the lion says, I'm the king, I don't have to pay. All the money comes to me anyway. So the donkey says, no, I don't know any nonsense. You cross the river, you got to pay the toll. So the lion became furious, and he killed the donkey. And he proceeded upon his walk, and he said to the fox, you stay here and prepare a meal from this donkey, and when we come back, we're going to eat the meal together. So the fox took apart all the limbs of the donkey, and the heart he ate up himself. So they returned, and the king looks upon the feast, looks upon all the parts. Where's the heart? So the fox says, the donkey had no heart. So the lion says, how could it be that I had no heart? How could a living animal not have a heart? So he says, Adoni HaMelech, my lord the king, if this donkey would have had a heart, could he have spoken with such chutzpah towards the king? He had no heart. So the mother says, Kavod Leif Pari. Pari's heart is liver. He has no heart. But this is what happened. This was the ikar of the Makis, of all the Makis. And because of that, as I mentioned before, and I'm saying this little item over because of Mordechai, who missed it before, I mentioned before that the Zayah says that all the inflictions, all the markers that we have in this week's Sedre upon the Mitzrayim are really refuahs to Klal Yisrael. So all the whole Sedre is full of refuahs, of healings. There are remedies for all certain ailments that we have either in our body or in our neshama. So like I mentioned before, that when there was chayshech for the Mitzrayim, and the Jews had light, because the infliction upon the Mitzrayim was a healing for the Jews. So, this week is a very important week. It's the second week in Shavuot, the second Shabbos in Shavuot, which ends the second week of Shavuot, and we're getting nearer to healing our neshama, which will, as a result, also bring healing to our bodies and whatever we need, whatever is lacking, and it needs a remedy. So this is the sedres of Shmois and vaeira and Boy and Beshalach, the sedres of Yetzias Mitzrayim, which are balsam to the Jewish heart and the rest of the body. Each part of the sedra, learn those sedres, with depth, with application, and it'll do you a lot of good. And listen attentively when the Chazan reads the parsha. And now we're going to skip and come to the end of the sedra. The last marker which is mentioned in this week's sedra. Before I mentioned that there are 10 markers corresponding to the 10 ma'amoris, to the 10 utterances of Ma'aseh Bereishis. And I mentioned that the Zayah says we go backwards. There are other versions. In the Magid Mesharim, which was written by the Rabbi Yosef Karei, the author of the Shulchan Aruch, he has a sefer that we have a very small part of it. I have the sefer here. I may show it you later, and it's in my closet. It's about 3/4 of an inch thick, but they say that that's only 2% of the sefer. The rest we don't have. He had a malach coming to him every night and teaching him Torah. Not the Torah of the type which we find in Shulchan Aruch, but rather the deep inyanim, the secrets of the Torah, the Seides HaTorah. So in the Magid Mesharim he also has that these 10 markers were corresponding, and they drew their power from the Asara Ma'amoris, but it doesn't go backwards, it goes straight. That Dam is Kneged, the first one, Chesed. I'm getting myself into being. I'm getting involved in something, and I'll have to keep above. I don't want to go into Kabbalah or something like that. However, I'll just make a little Hagdama. that we sometimes find in the Torah things are arranged in a certain order, and in other places the order is not the same. Like, for the last several weeks we have been speaking about the Chodashim, and the Chodashim are corresponding to the Shvatim. And the first Chodesh is Nisan, the Melech, the king of the Chodashim. And it's Yehuda is Nisan, and the Malachim come out from Yehuda. And this Seder, this order, we have by the Degalim and Pashas Bamidbar and Anasai and Balaischa. This is the order of the Shvatim. Yehuda, Yisachar, Zvulun, and so on and so forth. But there is another order which we find on the Chayshan, on the breastplate of the Kohen Gadol. And there, the Torah says L'Sar L'Daisam, and Yehuda doesn't appear first, there Reuven appears first. In the beginning of Shmais, we find an altogether different order. Reuven, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Yisachar, Zvulun, and Binyamin, then Naphtali, Gad, V'Yasher, and that needs an explanation. It's just, we don't understand, the order is not according to the Degalim, and not according to their, to the chronology of their births. So, they appear in different Eifanim, in different ways, and Rab Tzaddik explains that things in Kedusha have dual characteristics. They have in themselves one kind of a character and another kind, and at times one appears on the surface, and at times another characteristic appears on the surface. And the same thing we have with the Makkas also. We have so far the Seder of the Zaya and the Area Kodesh, and then we have the Seder of the Magid Meisharim, but we find the new Seder Pesach at night, a very interesting Seder. If you look in the expensive Haggadahs, you're going to see that the 10 items which we have on the Seder table are corresponding to the 10 Ma'amares. But I was conservative enough not to call them Sphirais. I call them Ma'amares. But there's a Kabbalah term called Sphirais. I won't go into what Sphirais is right now. I don't think that neither you or I are prepared for it right now. However, the Mamaris have different names. They instead of Breishis and then Vayemer and Vayemer, we would call them Keser and Chachma and Bina, and then the familiar Chesed, Gvura, Teferes, Netzach, Yesod, Malchus that we talk about in Spheres without knowing what we're babbling about. And these are the 10 Ma'amares. So, on the Seder table, you have a very interesting arrangement. The Seder table arranges these 10 Ma'amares and the items which correspond to the 10 Ma'amares in two sets. The Matzais and the Minim. The 3 Matzais, which are the first 3 Ma'amares, and these are heavenly Ma'amares. They have no shaykhis with earth. These are heavenly Ma'amares. And then the other 7 Ma'amares, the other 7 items, the Zraya, the Beitza, the Moraya, and they're arranged according to the Kabbalah arrangement that they have to be arranged in two triangles and then the chareisas and the karpas and the chazeres, and the ka'ara, the dish. This is the 10th. So you have the 3 matzahs, the 6 items, and the ka'ara, the dish. And we find that the Ariya Kaddish by the Seder table arranges them in a very peculiar way. The 3 matzahs are the first 3 mamares. That's one set, the heavenly mamares. Incidentally, the Torah also arranges them in a peculiar way. The 7 makkos, which are corresponding to the 7 lower mamares, to the 7 earthly mamares, are in the Seder of vaeira. And the 3 makkos, which is Keser and Tap, and Chachma and Bina, which come together, which are always together, the Leim is Paush, and they never separate, is in the Seder of Bay. And you find that in the word Bay, Bay's Aleph, and on top of them is the 1. The Bay's, the 2, and then the Aleph. 2, and the Aleph on top. So they're arranged. You may not know exactly what I'm talking about. However, this little bit which I am telling you now is enough to open our eyes and show us the glory of the wonders of the Torah, that there's much more to it than what we see and what we understand. So the arrangement at the Seder table is this way. It's all lopsided. You have the 10 matzahs, which are the first 3 mamares, and they're at the bottom. On the top of the 3 matzahs. On the top of those 3 matzahs, we have the 7 items. We have the 7 items. And in other words, he has an arrangement where we start like by Sfira Sa'imel, Chesed Gvur Teferes Nesach Yesod Malchus, and then we finish with Vaeira, and then we start with the 3 top ones, which are really on the bottom, the 3 matzahs. All right. Now we're going to rise from the depths and catch some air on top of the water. According to this cheshbon, Makas Barad, being the 7th of the Makas in Vaeira, is corresponding to the 7th of the Ma'amares. And Makas Barad, being the 7th, should relate somehow or other to Shabbos. And those of you, because Shabbos is the 7th day, and those of you who say the Hiyaratzim Basfira Sa'imel know that the last one of the Midas, which we are Mesakein, the last one of our character traits, which we try to improve upon in the 7 weeks of Sfira, the last one is called Malchus, kingdom. Malchus, after we're finished with everything, there is Malchus. Malchus is Shabbos. We don't do anything on Shabbos. What do we do on Shabbos? We just accept upon ourselves. Shabbos is the absence, it's the void of activity. And we just accept upon ourselves Malchus Shamayim, the kingdom of heaven. Because Shabbos is Malchus. And Shabbos is called Shabbos HaMalka. And when Shabbos comes, we rejoice with the kingdom of the Rabbeinu Shalom. Yismechu v'malachus chashem rei Shabbos. We rejoice with your kingdom. Who rejoices? The Shomrei Shabbos. Because to the extent that you're a Shomrei Shabbos, you enjoy the kingdom of the Rabbeinu Shalom. What it means to enjoy kingdom can only be understood those who practice it. Like I once told you the word from Rab Shamshon Rafal Hirsch. Seichel Tov L'chol Yisayim. The Torah makes good sense to those who practice it. Those who want to study theory of Torah and then do it, won't get to first base. You have to be Mekayim the Torah. You have to obey and listen and observe the mitzvahs of the Torah, and then you will first start understanding them. So Shabbos is Malchus. Yismchu v'Malchus Chashaymrei Shabbos, the last one of the 7. Being that Barad is the 7th, so that is related with Malchus. The one who accepts Malchus, the one who accepts the kingdom of the Rabbeinu Shalom, fears Hashem. But not the fear of Gevura, of we're afraid of the punishment. It's the fear of awe. We would call it respect rather than fear. If the president would be walking in now, we'd all stand up and start, and stand with austerity and respect. We're afraid. What are we afraid of? He won't punch us in the jaw. It's his awe. Like Isaiah says, the real fear of Hashem is begin the ihu rava v'shalit, because Hashem is great and He reigns, and we're startled and petrified at the greatness of the Rabbeinu Shalom. It's a different type of a fear which is enjoyable, rather than something that you recoil from and you try to take a Valium when it comes upon you. So this is called Yiras Hashem, the type of Malchus which is Yiras Hashem. And the Zayah says that that's the tachlis of everything. Even though the first Maimar is Bereishis, and the last one is Malchus, but in Bereishis you have the tachlis. Bereishis is the arrangements of the word Yorei Shabbos. Be afraid of Hashem on Shabbos. And on Shabbos, a Jew should be afraid of Hashem. Naturally, instinctively, he should be afraid of Hashem. The Yerushalmi says that even an Amarat, somebody who doesn't learn Torah, won't lie on Shabbos. I know Talmidei Chachamim who do lie on Shabbos, but that was in the times of the Yerushalmi. Today we lost all these madreigas. Now, in the Makkah of Barad, we have the Rabbeinu Shalom says, I'm going to rain down Barad. There will be a hail, ice with fire together, and I would suggest, and now, gather your cattle, whatever you have in the field, and every person and every animal that will be in the field, the barad will come down upon them and they will perish. But those which will be indoors will be saved. It was a miracle. Look, this barad just blasted down and felled down the biggest and strongest trees. But whoever was indoors in a residence, whether man or animal, was saved. So the pasuk tells us, Hayara is the Hashem Yavdei Parai, the one who was afraid of the word of the Shem from the servants of Parai. Heinus as Avada vas Miknei al-Arabatim, he just rushed all his servants and all his cattle into the houses. Vashalai Samli Be'od Var Hashem, and the one who didn't pay attention to the word of Hashem, V'yazav as Avada vas Miknei al-Basada. So he left them in the field, and the end was that they perished. And what did the Vaeira do? The Vaeira Vayacha Barad B'chaveretz Mitzrayim Eskarashet Asada. The Vaeira ruined everything in the field, from man to beast. Mayadam Adbaima V'Skaraisa Basada, and every blade of grass in the field he Barad. The Vaeira destroyed. V'Skal Eitz Asada Shiber, and it broke every tree. This is what the Vaeira did. Now, so what happened? Vayikra Parai v'yikra l'Moshe le'Aaron. Parai sent running to Moshe and Aaron. How he was able to come into Moshe and Aaron in the middle of this Vaeira, I don't know. That's something to look into the Mepharshim. And he said, Chatasi apam, I sinned this time. Hashem tzaddik, Hashem is the tzaddik. And I and my people, we're the Rishayim. Hatirol al Hashem, please daven to Hashem, and let the kailais alim ubarad, the noises of God, the kailais and the barad, let it stop, and I'm going to let you out. So Vayayimar Eilav Moshe. So Moshe said, as I go out of the city, Efes Kape al Hashem, I'm going to spread my hands to God. Hakailais yachdalim, the noises will cease. The abarat la'yiya'id, and no more hail. L'manteida, that you should know, Kil Hashem ha'aretz. But you think that you're kidding me? You think that now that you're repenting and you're saying you're going to let the Jews out, you think that you're kidding me? V'yatav avadecha, you and your servants, yadati, I know Giterim Tirim B'pnei Hashem Alekim. You aren't yet fearful of God. You want to let the Jews out. And this is what happened by the Vaeira. Now, the Mark Devil, the plague, killed all the animals. Now, Sarasha asks, if the Devil killed all the animals, which animals were killed during the Vaeira? Who survived to die in the Vaeira? So Rashi says that those animals which survived were from the Yari as Devar Hashem, the one who was afraid of the word of Hashem. In the Devil, also those who brought the animals indoors, those animals didn't perish. And these animals, if they were left outdoors by the Vaeira, these are the ones who perished. Now what I'm wondering is, why doesn't it say by the Devil that the Yarei Devar Hashem, the one who was afraid of Hashem, just rushed his animals indoors? Why doesn't the Torah tell us then that, but the Torah relates that by the Vaeira? It should, if it happened before, it should have been mentioned the first time it happened. And now, Rashi mentions Hayari is Devar Hashem. Those who are afraid of Hashem, they rushed their animals into the indoors, and they weren't plagued by the Vaeira. So later on, by Kriyas Yamsuf, we have that the horses of Parai, Kivasus Parai Brbe Yefarash of Susay or Barachav, they all went out to pursue the Jews going out of Mitzrayim, and they were all killed in the Yam Suf. Where did the Mitzrayim have horses? Who survived the Dever? Who survived the Barad? So whose horses were they? They were from the Yared Var Hashem, from those who were fearful of Hashem. So Rashi just says, Rashi remarks, like parenthetically, look at the Goyish Yared Var Hashem. He's a Yared Var Hashem, and he isn't afraid of Hashem, and he uses his horses, which survived the Barat, to pursue the Jews into the Yam Suf. You can imagine what kind of Yarei Dvar Hashem those Mitzrayim were. But this bothers me. The Torah, every word of the Torah is absolute truth. If the Torah gives them the distinction of being a Yarei Dvar Hashem, of being afraid of the word of Hashem, so they're Yirei Shamayim. So why did they pursue the Jews by the Yam Suf? Didn't they know after those 10 Makkos that there is reason to be fearful of Hashem? And the Torah calls them Yarei Dvar Hashem. It isn't like, an advertisement in the Jewish press or whatever, the great renowned rabbi or whatever. The Torah says Hayarei is Dvar Hashem. So they are actually Yereim Dvar Hashem. They're fearful of Hashem. What happened to them? Where did their Yiras Shamayim leak out? Rashi says, the Ramban explains that Moshe Rabbeinu said when Parei pleaded that he should interrupt the Barad, so he said, as I'm going to go out of the city, I'm going to pray that the Barad should stop. Why didn't he pray in the city? So the Ramban, like he did before, by the Tzvadayim, by the Yarev, he also, Parei also pleaded that he should stop it. So, and Moshe was mispalel. So he did it within the city limits. Why did he have to go out of the city? Chasha says because it was Avodah Zarah in the city. He didn't want to daven where there's Avodah Zarah. But he did so by the Tzvadayim, the Yarev. Why is the Barad an exception? So the Ramban says, because he wanted to daven a special tefillah, Efreis Eskapay, I'll raise my hands to something very special in davening when you raise your hands. The tzaddikim weren't too commending about those people, that they raise their hands by davening, like this, like an ecstasy. No, keep your hands down and daven plain. Because raising your hands and davening was something which was done by the tzaddikim of olden times, the base of Mikdash, and it requires Mesiras Nefesh. It's a very big madreig, and you can't just, to do some acrobatics during davening. You have to, you don't raise your hands. But this was a special tefillah with Efreis Eskapay. I'm going to raise my hands towards Hashem. So that's why he went out of city limits, because it's a special tefillah, and there was no Avodah Zarah. But the Ramban stops short at answering the question. So this gufa has to be answered. Why didn't he raise his hands with the special tefillah by the Yarav and Tzvadaya? Why did he reserve this special tefillah only for the Barad? The Medrash Tanchuma tells us that when Moshe Rabbeinu was mispalel, that the Barad should stop, it says, Umat nitach arza. The rain, the Barad, which rained down, did not go down to the earth. It just remained where it was. But it didn't go back to Shemayim either. In other words, it remains suspended in midair, and it's still there till this very day. And it's going to go down upon the Goyim when Mashiach will come, and they're going to wage war against Mashiach. And in the period preceding that, perhaps, there's a certain Milchama that the Navi talks about. We have it in the Haftarah of Sukkot. It's called Milchamas Gog Magog. The Milchama of Gog Magog, and David HaMelech talks about this Milchama in the second capital of Tehillim Lama Rakshul Goyim, where they're all going to rebel against Hashem and try to capture the city of Jerusalem, of Yerushalayim, and then this barad, which because of the tefillah of Moshe Rabbeinu did not come down, but it remains suspended between heaven and earth, that barad is going to come down upon the heads of all the Goyim that will try to lay siege on Yerushalayim, like the pasuk says there in Yechezkel, and that's going to be the remains of the barad. What is this Milchamas Gog Magog? We have a klal that everything which we find in pashtus, in simpleness, also has a depth. There's always a pnimius. There's something in torah. There is pnimius and pnimius and pnimius. There is deeper and deeper and deeper. We know that just preceding the real appearance of Mashiach, there will be a Milchamas Gog Magog. And this war is really going to be symbolic of another war which is going to concurrently take place during that time. A spiritual war. A war against emunah, against faith, against belief in the Rabbeinu Shalom. And the Sfarim Magdashim tell us that this is going to be the real severity of the Milchamas Gog Magog. Our minds are going to be bombarded with thoughts of kfira, of non-believing, of not believing in Hashem. And we're going to have to struggle with these thoughts and try to relieve ourselves from them and fight against them and just wage war against these thoughts. And look for aitzes, look for ways and means how to help you out in this war by going to tzaddik and by going to chachamim and asking for eitzes on learning torah and davening to Hashem and praying for nitzach and praying for victory against Gog Magog, this Amalek, this pnimius of sfeikus and emunah, of doubts in belief of Hashem, with which Jews are going to be bombarded, and probably everything points to it that we're in the middle of at least this luchnius de Milchamas Gog Magog now, because it was never before that it was so hard to be a Jew, where the majority of Klal Yisrael doesn't believe. All through history, we never had such a period as we're living through now. This Milchamas Gog Magog. So there's also going to be a physical Gog Magog. But we're going to have the Milchama in Ruchnius and in Gashmius, in the physical sense and also in the spiritual sense. This is the Milchamas Gog Magog. And the three Sudas of Shabbos the Gemara tells us, are to help us out and spare us from three dinim. The Suda at night, Friday night, if somebody is Mekayim that Suda, that saves them from Chavarei Mashiach. The Suda in the morning saves a person from Gehenna, and Shalashudis from Mechemes Geigel Mergeig. And that's Shalashudis. The real character of Shalashudis is to sit in the dark and to say, Hashem Royi, Hashem is my shepherd, and Gan Ki Yelech Begeitz Al-Mavas, even if I go in the valley of death or whatever, Le'ira, I'm not afraid. Because Rabbeinu Shleidim is with me, Kiyata Imadi. In the dark, when I'm blindfolded, when I see no light, when I see no, I don't see the brightness of Hashem's appearance, I should believe in Hashem nevertheless. That's and therefore Shalashudis is the Suda that saves us from Mechemes Geigel Magig. And in some of the Sidurim you have this Yehiratza in front of all the Sudas, and by Shalashudis it says that in the Susalam Ganit Shalashudis, now please Hashem, spare me from the Mechemes Geigel Magig. We're living now in Mechemes Geigel Magig. I don't think I don't see it necessary to prove it. It's very obvious that we're going through Mechemes Geigel Magig now. Another point I want to bring out. We know from Sfarim that tzaddikim can sometimes, can very often, through their prayers, help a Jew with a Yeshua, for a refuah, for having children, for getting a shidduch, for panas, whatever they need. It's much easier to do a Yeshua to help out a guy than a Yid, because this is a material world. And this material world belongs to Esav. Eilam Haba is really the domains of Yankov. And therefore it's very easy to do, the tzaddikim said it's very easy to make a Yeshua for a guy. But by a Yid, there's Mekatrik, and the Aveiras don't allow, the Satan doesn't allow. The Satan doesn't care if a guy is helped. The Satan cares if a Jew is helped. Because he is our arch enemy, of course. Now, what is Malchus? Barat, the realization and the knowledge that there is a Rabbeinu Shalom, Kabbalas El Malchus Shemayim. That's Malchus. And that's Shabbos. Yismechu v'malchus chashayim rei Shabbos. We accept Malchus Shemayim upon ourselves, and our very keeping Shabbos testifies that Hashem created the world with all the Asara Mamaris. So, that's the seventh one, Malchus. And being that according to this Seder with which we're dealing now, Barad is the seventh, and that's Malchus. So the seventh of the Aseres Adibros is Zacharos Yom Shabbos Klekatsha. And that's Shabbos HaMalka. When the Barad came down, it rained with Malchus Shemayim. Because Barad comes from Malchus. And as I mentioned before, the Barad was a makkah to the Mitzrim and a refuah to the Yidden. So of course the Jews benefited very much from this makkah. Oh, they thrived upon it. They enjoyed it. They were taken over with Malchus Shemayim, with the feeling and the belief and the conviction that there is a Rabbeinu Shalom who manages the affairs of this world, and he's the Melech Malchei HaMelech. And even the Goyim, it rained upon the Malchus Shemayim, not that they enjoyed it, but they came to a point where they had to admit against their will that there is a Malchus Shemayim, that God controls and God is king. So this is what the Barad was, a rain of Malchus Shemayim. It was an acid rain for the Mitzrayim, but it was a sweet, good rain for the Yidden. They enjoyed it. This was the motto of the Barad. And therefore, being that it rained with Malchus Shemayim, a new appearance we see. Among the Mitzrayim, Hayare is Dvar Hashem. They're afraid of the word of Hashem. The Torah never tells us by the previous Marcus, even by the devil, where they did listen, those who listened, but it wasn't with Yiras Hashem. It was with superstition, whatever it was, because they saw. But by the Vaeira, the Torah says, Hayari is the Vaeira Hashem, and every word of the Torah is true. It rained down with Malchus Shemayim. They were afraid of the word of Hashem. Habarad, as the Torah calls it, is Bigmat Hayari Dvar Hashem. Because that's what the Barad consists of. It consisted of Shabbos, of Yarei Shabbos. V'zoch alachem yirei shmi. The Navi says that those that are afraid of my name, the sun of healing will shine upon you. So the Gemara dashes in Masechta Shabbos, who are the Yirei Shmi, who are afraid of Hashem? Eilu Shomrei Shabbos. Those are Shomrei Shabbos, like Isaiah says, Yirei Shabbos. That's Yirei Shmi. So when this matter of the Barad came down, a torrent of Malchus Shemayim, of Yiras Shemayim came down. Alas, the Barad didn't come down completely. It was interrupted in the middle of its downfall because of the plea of Pari. Pari wanted the Barad to stop. So the whole portion of Malchus Shemayim, the complete dose of Malchus Shemayim, which the Rabbeinu Shalom prepared for the world, with the rain of the Barad, didn't come down. They just had half of the dose. So that's alas. If that Barad would have come down completely, the whole world would have been Mekabel al Malchus Shemayim, and the whole world would have sung Aleinu L'Shabeya. L'Sakin Oilam the Malchus Shadei. L'Chol B'nei Vasa Yikru L'Shmecha. L'Afnes Alecha Karisha Yoretz. Yakiru V'Yedu Kal Yoshvei Seiva. They all would have realized Ki L'cha Hashem, Ki L'cha HaMalacha, V'Y Hashem L'Melech Al Kol Ha'aretz. But the Barad stopped. And therefore, Pari came to a point he couldn't take so much Malchus Shemayim. It was too much for him. You know, some people say, it's too much, I can't take that much. And Pari came running, please stop this Barad. I'm going to platz from this Malchus Shemayim. It's too much for me. You can't take it. So therefore, the Malchus Shemayim stopped. And those who bore the distinction during the Barad of Hayari as Dvar Hashem, after the Barad, they weren't Yari as Dvar Hashem anymore. Because it was only during the Barad that they were Yari as Dvar Hashem. So therefore, they had the audacity to use those same horses which survived the Barad because of their being a Yari as Dvar Hashem. So they used those same horses to run after the Yidden by the Yamsuf. So this is Gaigul Mergaig. And the Barad is a marker against Gaigul Mergaig, and it will come down in completion when Mashiach will come, just before Mashiach will come. So Moshe Rabbeinu knew that before Mashiach will come, we're going to have this Messiah of Emunah. The test is going to be Emunah, to believe in Hashem. Moshe Rabbeinu knew that. So Moshe Rabbeinu, being that Pari pleaded and Hashem agreed that his plea should be accepted. So because Pari pleaded that the Barad should stop, and the full dose of Malchus Shemayim will not come down, and so Moshe Rabbeinu pleaded, Rabbanu Shleilim, there should have been more Malchus Shemayim to come down, and then the world would have been L'sakin Olam b'Malchus Shakai. It would have been the utopia of the Yemaisa Mashiach already. But now the Jews are going to be subjected to the bombardment of the thoughts of Sfeikis and Emunah, of the thoughts of that's going to plague them and torment them, of having doubts in the belief of Hashem in the period just preceding the coming of Mashiach, during the spiritual war of Gog and Magog, which will precede the factual Milchama of Gog and Magog. So Moshe Rabbeinu knew that the Jews will go through such a terrible period, and everybody today, almost everybody, is even those who come to daven, so many of them, they come and complain to me, and I know that here and there they have to wage war against thoughts of kfira chas v'shalom. They're being bombarded by neutrons of kfira, of Gog and Magog. That's what it is. So Moshe Rabbeinu knew that. So he went out to be mispalel. No, Moshe Rabbeinu wasn't mispalel for the Mitzrayim that the Vaeira should stop. He went out for a more important tefillah. He went out and was mispalel now that Malchus Shemayim won't come down with a complete dosage that's necessary for the world to have its ideal state. So therefore the Jews are going to be subjected to Mulchamais just before Mashiach will come. So he was mispalel that the Vaeira should not return to heaven. Let it remain suspended, and let the Jews benefit from this Vaeira, from this Malchus Shemayim, when they're going to need it. Let them be able to sit by Shalosh Shudas and graze upon Yiras Shemayim, which are the particles of the Vaeira which are going to come down whenever there's a Mechemes Gog and Magog, like we have during Shalosh Shudas time. Let them be able to sing with Emunah, because every song really is Emunah. Because when a person sings to Hashem, it comes from faithfulness. There's a lot of psukim that prove this. Vayaminu b'Hashem u'v'Moshe avdei az yashem Moshe v'nei Yisrael. When they believed, they sang. Vayaminu b'dvarav, it says in Tzilim, yashiru tehillasei. Because song means harmony, and conflicts in thought is the opposite of harmony. So Moshe Rabbeinu knew that before Mashiach will come, to believe with pure emunah in Hashem would be like trying to climb up a straight, slippery wall. And I didn't make up this phrase. Tzaddikim said it in Dairas before, that before Mashiach will come, believing in Hashem would be like climbing up a straight wall. And the Neil tells us about it when he describes a period of right before Mashiach. V'Shiur Rishayim, and Malachi, the last Navi, tells us about that in the end of Malachi, in the Haftarah, which we read by Shabbos HaGadol. So Moshe Rabbeinu was mispalel that Jews should have Yiras Shemayim in the last days before Mashiach. So therefore, he didn't want to daven such an important tefillah in city limits where there's Avodah Zarah. To daven that Parah shouldn't be bitten by a lion, by the Arayv, or that he shouldn't be annoyed by a tzfardaya, by a frog, that he can daven in city limits, even with the Avodah Zarah. But an important tefillah, that Yidden should preserve their emunah, that they should be able to fight against the Yetzer Hara and against those thoughts which torment them and try to so illogically rip them away from emunah. Efres eskapayas, spread his hands to Hashem and daven a real very high class tefillah, and that he can't daven within city limits and without prisas kapayim, without spreading his hands. It's a very special tefillah. In Rabbeinu Bechaya, he explained, the Rabbeinu Bechaya goes for the water 10 markers, and he tells us just in which month each marker took place. It's a little different than what the Ramban says. The Ramban also has such a Seder, but Rabbeinu Bechaya Seder is a little different. And according to Rabbeinu Bechaya, the last 2 markers were in Chodesh Nisan. Every marker started at Rosh Chodesh, with the exception of Marcus Bechayres, which was on the 15th day of Nisan, on Pesach. So Rosh Chodesh Nisan was Choshech. Before Nisan comes Adar. So that was Arba. Am I right? Before Choshech comes Arba. And before Arba was Shvat. And that was Barad. So according to Rabbeinu Bechaya, it says it Befeirish and Parashas Bay. Rabbeinu Bechaya Parashas Bay, if you're going to look it up, the Barad came down on Rosh Chodesh Shvat. Now, this Shabbos, yes. When we read about the Barad, that's when the Barad is going to come down. And we're very fortunate this year that Mamish Rosh Chodesh Shvat comes down Mamish on Shabbos. So the Barad came down on Shvat. And the Barad was really Malchus Shamayim. And it was Shabbos. And it came down on Shvat. Phonetically, and more than that, you will see a relation between Shabbos, or the way the Sfardim pronounce it, Shabbat, and Shvat. The tes and the taf interchange always. Dak lanat, in the utterances of the tongue. There are 5 sets of pronunciations of consonants, and each one of them comes from a different part of the mouth, in the mouth, and those of the tongue is these 4 races, dalet, tes, nun, taf. So they interchange with each other, and really, even without this interchanging, phonetically, Shabbat and Shvat are the same. So because on Shvat, when the Barad came down, Shabbos came down. It's the 7th marker. Malchus Shemayim came down. And it's a man of Kabbalah Satayra. It was on Rosh Chodesh Shvat. Can you give me a Chumash Dvarim, please? This is too good to say it by heart. When the Sefer Dvarim begins, so we have like this. Eila Dvarim Asher Diba Moshe. Moshe Rabbeinu starts repeating the Torah. When was it? It was in the 40th year, the Yashta Yasa Chodesh, in the 11th month, which is Shvat, the Echad La Chodesh, and Rosh Chodesh Shvat. Hayil Diba Moshe B'nai Yisrael, and Hayil Moshe vaeira Torah Zayis. Moshe Rabbeinu started to be vaeira the Torah. The Chiddush Yerim explains that the real shefa, the real bounty of Torah comes down in Shvat. So there's a machlaikas, and that's called Torah. Torah is Eitz Chai Mi'ela Machazikim. Torah is a tree of life. And the real shefa, the real bounty of Torah comes on in Shvat. Beis Shammai is a higher madreige. They feel it when Rosh Chodesh Shvat comes. So they say that Rosh Chodesh Shvat, B'yachad B'Shvat, Rosh Hashanah Le'Yelan. And Beis Hillel says, B'chamisha Asa B'Shvat, or like it's modernly called Tu B'Shvat, that's when we have Rosh Hashanah Le'Yelan, and we eat from the fruits of the tree. And the Chiddush Yerim says that he can feel that every Shvat, he feels a hischatshus, like a new crop, a fresh crop of Torah comes down. He says when a person learns Torah and he comes to a madreige where he says Chiddush Torah, where he brings out new things in Torah, you can see the difference in the Chiddush in which he said before Shvat and after Shvat. It's a new crop, it's a new vintage. And this is what comes down on Rosh Chodesh Shvat. So on Rosh Chodesh Shvat, why? But according to what we explained, it comes out very good. Because the Gemara makes it a point and emphasizes it. In the Masechta Shabbos, there's a machlekes in Tanoim there, but exactly what's the date when the Torah was given, but L'kulei Alma, everybody agrees b'Shabbos the Torah, that Shabbos the Torah was given. Shabbos is the day of Torah. The Zohar Kodesh calls Shabbos Yoima D'Araisa, the day of the Torah. You can't have Yiras Shamayim without Torah, because the Barad today, if you want to find it, you're going to find it in the Torah. You want to have a shower of Yiras Shamayim? Learn Torah. And I've seen that over and over again. You cannot have any Yiras Shamayim, any genuine Yiras Shamayim. You can have fantasies, you can have mirages, you can think, you can go into ecstasy or into and dance and jump and go into a frenzy. But a genuine Yiras Shamayim is only if you apply your head to Torah. So therefore, Moshe Rabbeinu picked Chodesh Shvat because Moshe Rabbeinu was in a big madrega like Beis Shammai. Beis Shammai is in a bigger madrega than Beis Hillel. When Mashiach will come, we'll pass him like Beis Shammai. So therefore, on Rosh Chodesh Shvat, Moshe Rabbeinu started explaining the Torah to the Yidden, because that's when the tree of Torah bears fruit. The Eitz Chaim Hila Machazikim, but the tree of Torah, which is an Eitz Chaim, a tree of life, to those who hold on to the Torah, to the tree of life. So Shvat, Torah, Rosh Hashanah Le'ilam, and Shabbos, and the Barad, they're all cousins. It's one thing, and we're all going to have it in one package on this coming Shabbos Haba Aleinu L'Torah. So therefore you're going to find something which you don't find by any other of the Makkahs. You know, as I mentioned before, the Zayah says that every Makkah was a refuah was a Makkah for the Mitzrayim, but it was a refuah for the Yidden. So what happened by the Barad? The Askal Eitz Hasada Shibeil. The Barad broke every tree. Because the refuah for the Yidden is the opposite. It's Rosh Hashanah L'Yalana. It's the tree underneath, even though we may not see it yet, starts the first stages which will bring its blossoming. The tree is going to develop now. So that's the refuah by the Yidden, the tree of Torah. So the Makkah by the Mitzrayim was called Eitz Hashadah Shiber. It broke the tree, because that was on Rosh Chodesh Shvat, Rosh Hashanah Le'ilam. So that's when the trees were broken. So therefore, being that Moshe Rabbeinu saw that he has to interrupt the Barad, and a full dose of Yiras Shamayim won't come down already anymore. So he said something which he didn't say when he interrupted the Yarav and the Tzvadeya. He said, V'ata v'avadecha Yadati, I know ki terem tirem v'pnei Hashem Elokim. You aren't afraid of Hashem. You do not yet have fear of Hashem. You have a temporary fear right now because the Barad is coming down. It's going to cease when the Barad will be interrupted. This is not the real, genuine Yiras Shamayim. That you're going to have when the Barad will come to its completion in the days of Gog and Magog, when the whole world will be filled with Yiras Shamayim. So now we're entering the great Shabbos, Shabbos Parshas Vaeira, Shabbos Rosh Chodesh Shvat, and the Sfarim say that Shvat, Shin Beis Tes, is Rosh Tevis Shamreim, Barcheim, Taharim. It's a time that a Yid can have a bounty of intimacy with the Rabbeinu Shalom. And it's a very special Chodesh. The Chodesh Shvat, something that we're waiting for. The Shvat, where we're going to eat the fruit of the tree, the refuah to the Jewish tree, as opposed to the Kol Eitz Hasada Shibeil, to the breaking down of the Goyish tree. And Shvat is Rosh Tevis, as Sfarim say, Shalom Teiva Bracha. That's what we ask for by the last Bracha in Shmones Esrei, Shvat. And Shabbos is Shvat. And therefore we say, and this is the Sedra Vaeira. And as I mentioned last week and 2 weeks ago, Our Torah is a Torah Chayim. It isn't a history. It isn't storytelling. And the Torah is a perpetual Torah that every Shabbos when we read the Torah, we relive the Torah. And if it says, vaeira, I appear, that's how the Seder begins. And if that's the name of the Seder, then that's the character of the Seder. In this Shabbos, Rabbeinu Shalom could appear to every Yid. And the Tanya says that vaeira, in Lashon HaKodesh, vaeira can have two meanings. Vaeira means, and I appeared. And that's how the Rebbe teaches in the Cheder. I appeared to Avram, Yitzchak, and Yankov. Vaeira could also mean, and I will appear. Vaeira, and I will appear. Those of you who know some Hebrew will please back me up on this. Vaeira can be used in two ways. I appeared, and I will appear. And the Rabbeinu Shalom, who appeared to Moshe Rabbeinu and to the Jews in Mitzrayim, with his gush, with his hail and rain, appears to us in the last generation of Vikras of the Mashiach with the same Barad and all the blessings that the Barad carries with it. And like the Sfarim say, Vaeira is Rashetayvais Ani Rishon Va'ani Acher. The same Rabbeinu Shalom who brought us the brachas and the refuahs of Vaeira in the times of Yetzias Mitzrayim is going to do it for us this Shabbos, and let's prepare really for a great, wonderful, fruitful, fruit-bearing Shabbos Dikatri on the Rosh Hashanah L'Yelanis, which is the Tu B'Shvat of the times of the of Bias HaMashiach. Because when Mashiach will come, we'll pass him like Beis Shammai, that Echad B'Shvat, Chodesh Shvat, is Rosh Hashanah L'Yolanis. It's Rosh Hashanah to be mikabel upon yourself, to learn Torah. Hayol Echad Bashta Yasa Chodesh, Bechet Chodesh, Hayol Moshe Vaeira Satayra Zayslema. Moshe didn't find, out of the 365 days in the year, he didn't find any more suitable day to teach the Torah but on Rosh Chodesh, to start repeating the Torah and explaining it again to the Yid, because when the second time you explain it, then you understand it much deeper. Then on Rosh Chodesh Shvat utilizes Shabbos Rosh Chodesh Shvat, and Hashem is Baruch should help that it should bring us with all its miles, with all the great all the laurels that this Rosh Chodesh Shvat is wearing. It should also have the additional mile of it should be the first Shabbos that we spend under Mashiach. Amen. You just